There's another bit on the tape, which of course nobody ever plays, in which I say that fat cats, oligarchs are controlling India's interests. India's resources don't belong to these people. And Neera Radia interrupts and says, but that is going against Mukesh. And I say, explain that to me. She does. And if you read the article and you come to the end where I say it's one thing for an industrialist to own a factory, quite another for him to corner all of our natural resources, and I refer specifically to gas, which as we all know has been Mukesh Ambani's area, not Anil Ambani's area. I give that as a specific example and I end the article with that. That's not something Neera Radia wanted. It's something Neera Radia objected to. And yet, if you read the article, that's the final conclusion. What I have done, because people have only heard these sort of selective excerpts, I've heard bits of tonality, I've come to conclusions. I've put that article on my website. Anybody watching this program, I say, go and read the damn thing. You will see it's completely fair.
But Mr. Sanghvi, the fact also is, in the portions where you're discussing the interview with Mukesh Ambani, you ask Neera Radia, what is the sort of interview you'd like to do? This whole thing will need to be pre-scripted. We will need to rehearse what we are going to say. It gives the sense to everyone who's watching this broadcast that did you preset, did you fix? Cricket matches get fixed, but do journalists, and did you fix interviews with Mukesh Ambani? Were you chosen for this interview because the corporate lobbyist believed that you were pliable and could be made to ask whatever questions would make the corporate honcho come out in the best light?
Okay, that's a fair question, and I have to say, in all the things that have happened in the tapes, it's that Mukesh Ambani interview thing that annoys me and worries me the most. First of all, it's theoretical. I had no interview program at the time this conversation took place. When I did have an interview program, no interview with Mukesh Ambani was ever recorded. So therefore, I can, in the case of Counterpoint, point you to Counterpoint and say to you that Counterpoint is completely fair. I can't, in the case of the Mukesh Ambani interview, say to you, watch it, it was completely fair, simply because the interview did not take place. So we're not actually talking about a cricket match. We're talking about some kind of intention to perhaps fix an interview which never happened. I've referred before to things being cut. I've referred before to chunks of the tape being cut. There's a whole chunk of the tape before in which Neera Radia talks about how, Mukesh wants to talk. I don't know if that's part of your tape. How Mukesh wants to talk. He's ready to say things. We've given him a whole script. We've told him he should say things, etc., etc. And I say afterwards, in fact, the word I use, I think, is, I'll come and do a run through. I use the word and I say, if you want to do a scripted interview, we'll do a scripted interview. You can give him the script. I will come, I will give him a run through. Now, I want to explain that because the run through is not exactly the same thing as the rehearsal. When I do an interview, and my style, as anybody who's seen my interviews, is not to go in there Gestapo style and hammer away at people. If there are people who don't give interviews and there's an element of nervousness or whatever, I say to them, okay, listen, this is what the interview is going to be like. It's not live. Relax. There are 2 segments of 10 minutes. The first segment is going to focus on these things. The second segment is going to focus on these things. Once the interview actually starts, and here I can't refer to the Mukesh Ambani interview because it never actually took place, but watch all my other interviews. When the interviews actually take place, though I put the guest at ease, though I am relaxed, though I'm easy, though I speak softly, the information does come through. I wish to God that this interview had happened because you would have seen that.
The other very serious allegation being leveled against you, Mr. Sanghvi, is that you say that you will speak to Sonia Gandhi, Ahmed Patel, Rahul Gandhi's name is also there. You seem to be dropping these names, and in several places there is a reference to we. When you're speaking, it makes it seem as if we is you and the Congress party. Can you explain that to our viewers? How is it that you say, almost as a spokesperson of the Congress party, that this is what we have understood, this is what is going to happen? How do you respond to that allegation, sir?
Sure. Again, will you give me a little bit of time to explain it? I'll explain it to you. If you remember when the government was formed, there appeared to be a crisis. The DMK said it wasn't going to join the government. At that stage, it looked as though if the government did not join the UPA would be short-lived. The whole victory would amount to nothing. I know nobody in the DMK. I've never met Raja, Karunanidhi, Kanimuri, Balu, Maran, any of these people. I wondered how I would do it. Neera Radia calls me up, and I think that tape is actually in the recording. And I say to Neera, she tells me, do you know anyone in the Congress? Can you get a message across to people you're meeting? I have now 2 options. Because I know she is a friend of Kanimuri's. I know that she has some kind of contacts there. I know she has some influence into what Karunanidhi is thinking. Some sense perhaps of what's happening. One is I string her along. I say, yeah, yeah, I'll pass it on. And I therefore find out what's actually happening. The other is I say, no, sorry, I don't know anybody, and I hang up. Now, whether I actually pass these messages on to the Congress, I don't think is an issue any longer. I have said I didn't pass these messages on. The Congress itself has said that whatever was said was a figment of my imaginations. There was no sense of messages being passed. I was stringing my source along. Now, you can argue, should I string a source along? Are journalists under an obligation to always tell the truth to their sources?